Imagine this. You wake up one morning and realize you've spent years, perhaps even decades, chasing a person who never truly existed. Not in the way of fantasy or delusion, but in the far more unsettling sense that your heart, mind, and soul have been chasing an idea, a projection, a reflection of something buried so deep within you that you mistook it for destiny. This person, this soulmate, was not a real being with their own thoughts, flaws, contradictions, and shadows. No, they were a mirror, a vessel into which you poured every unmet need, every childhood wound, every desperate hope for completion. You built them from fragments of your past, stitched together by longing, animated by the illusion that somewhere out there exists another half capable of making you whole. And yet, when you found them or thought you did, you felt the familiar hollowness creep in. The magic dimmed. The euphoria faded. They said something that stung, acted in a way you didn't expect, revealed a flaw that shattered the image you had so carefully constructed. And suddenly, the ground beneath you cracked open. Why? Because you weren't loving them. You were loving a version of yourself reflected back at you through their eyes. Now ask yourself this. What if the very concept of a soulmate is not only flawed, but dangerous? What if the belief that someone else can complete you is the single most destructive idea ever seeded into the human psyche? Think about how many lives have been wasted waiting. How many relationships have crumbled under the weight of impossible expectations? How many people have abandoned themselves in pursuit of a mirage, believing that true love would finally make them feel whole? But here's the paradox. The more you seek to be completed by another, the less whole you become. Because what you're really doing is outsourcing your inner work. You are handing over the reins of your emotional sovereignty to someone else, hoping they'll fill the void inside you. But no one, not even the most enlightened, loving, or compatible partner, can do that for you. That emptiness was never theirs to fix. It was yours all along. So why do we keep falling for it? Why do we romanticize the idea of finding the one as if it has some cosmic rescue mission? Why do songs, movies, books, and entire industries thrive on selling us the dream of salvation through love? Why does the idea of spending life alone feel like a fate worse than death? Is it possible that our obsession with soulmates is not born of love at all, but of fear? Fear of facing ourselves. Fear of confronting the parts of us that feel broken, unworthy, or incomplete. Fear of realizing that the answers we seek lie not in another person, but within. There's a quiet violence in this belief system. It teaches us that we are insufficient as we are, that we must find someone to fill the gaps, to give meaning to our existence, to validate our worth. It tells us that without love, we are nothing. And in doing so, it robs us of the power to stand alone, to grow from within, to become sovereign beings. But what if the greatest act of love is into, to find someone who completes you, but to stop believing you are ever incomplete? What if the real soulmate is not a person, but the journey toward self-realization? Consider this. The moment you stop searching outside yourself for what you lack, the moment you turn inward and begin the arduous task of integration, healing, and self-acceptance, that is the moment you reclaim your power. And in that moment, you no longer need a savior. You no longer need a knight, a goddess, a twin flame, or a divine counterpart. You simply need yourself. But here is the catch. Most people would rather suffer endlessly in the illusion than face the terrifying truth that they are already whole, already enough, already worthy, because to accept that means letting go of the story. The beautiful, tragic, intoxicating story of the lost half-seeking reunion. It means admitting that the pain you feel in relationships, the longing, the disappointment, the cycles of hope and despair are not caused by others failing to meet your needs, but by your refusal to meet them yourself. So now, ask yourself again, are you chasing someone who doesn't exist? Or are you afraid to look in the mirror and see the truth staring back at you? If you willing to take the next step, if you ready to peel back the layers of illusion and confront the psychological machinery behind this myth, then prepare yourself. Because what you believe about love, destiny, and connection is about to change forever. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You believed you were searching for love. But what if the truth is far more unsettling? What if every time you fell in love, you weren't connecting with another person, but confronting a fragment of yourself, a part you buried long ago, a wound you never healed, a need you refused to meet on your own? This is not mere speculation. It is the architecture of a human psyche laid bare. At the heart of this illusion lies a force so deeply embedded in our consciousness that most never see it: projection. Carl Jung called it one of the most powerful mechanisms of the unconscious, a way for the mind to externalize its inner conflicts and disown its uncomfortable truths. When we project, we do not simply see others as they are. We see them as reflections of ourselves. And when those reflections align with the parts of us we have yet to integrate, we mistake them for destiny. That's why some people feel like home the moment you meet them. Not because they are your soulmate, but because they mirror back something you've been missing within yourself. Perhaps they embody the strength you lack, or the freedom you fear, or the love you were denied as a child. You don't fall in love with who they are. You fall in love with what they represent. And in doing so, you hand over your power, believing that only they can give you what you cannot give yourself. This is the hidden machinery behind romantic obsession. Not love, but unmet need masquerading as connection. Now ask yourself, what was it you needed that you thought they could provide? Was it safety, validation, wholeness? Or was it something deeper, an echo of an old wound, calling out to be healed? Friedrich Nietzsche warned of this centuries ago. He saw how humans, unable to face their own emptiness, create idols, be they gods, ideologies, or lovers, and bow before them in desperate hope of salvation. When man finds himself bored by solitude, he wrote, he has already betrayed his deepest self. And isn't that the tragedy? We chase another person, not because we love them, but because we are afraid of being alone with ourselves. Because in the silence between thoughts, in the stillness of night, we hear the voice we have spent a lifetime trying to drown out, the whisper that says, I am not enough. So we seek someone else to prove otherwise. But no amount of validation from the outside can ever quiet that voice. Because it doesn't come from the world, it comes from within. And until you learn to sit with it, to understand it, to transform it, you will keep projecting it onto others. Arthur Schopenhauer, ever the pessimist, saw this dynamic at play in all human relationships. He believed that love, at its core, is not about emotional connection, but biological imperative. We are drawn to those who complement our weaknesses, unconsciously seeking genetic survival rather than spiritual union. The idea of romantic fulfillment, he argued, is a grand illusion, one designed to ensure the continuation of the species, not the happiness of the individual. But even he underestimated the psychological depth of the problem, because it's not just biology driving this cycle. It's trauma, conditioning, cultural mythology. From the moment we are born, we are taught that love is something we must find, that without it, we are incomplete, that the highest form of existence is to be chosen, to be seen, desired, cherished by another. Children watch their parents, absorbing the silent scripts of codependency, abandonment, and longing. They grow up believing that love means pain, or sacrifice, or waiting for someone to finally get them right. And when they enter the world of romance, they carry these inherited patterns like invisible shackles, mistaking repetition for destiny. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, depicted a society where people were conditioned to crave instant gratification and superficial pleasure. Though he spoke of dystopia, he captured a fundamental truth. Modern culture does not teach us to seek depth, but distraction. We are bombarded with images of perfect relationships, curated personas, and the myth of instant chemistry. We consume stories where love is effortless, magical, redemptive. And then we wonder why reality feels so hollow. Jean-Paul Sartre understood this better than most. For him, love was a battlefield not of passion, but of identity. In his play No Exit, he famously declared, "Hell is other people." Not because people are inherently evil, but because we spend so much of our lives defining ourselves through their gaze. We become trapped in cycles of projection, expectation, and disappointment, forever seeking validation from others, while losing ourselves in the process. Even Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of Auschwitz, recognized that meaning cannot be given, it must be discovered. His philosophy of logotherapy emphasized that fulfillment comes not from another person, but from the choices we make in response to suffering. To believe otherwise is to surrender agency to fate. Yet here we are, still chasing the fantasy, still hoping that somewhere, somehow, there exists a person who will finally make everything make sense. But what if the real danger isn't in failing to find that person? What if the danger is in continuing to believe that such a person exists at all? Because the longer you live under the spell of projection, the less capable you become of seeing others clearly. You stop loving them for who they are and start loving them for what they symbolize. And when they inevitably fail to match your image, you discard them. Or worse, you treat to mold them into the version you imagined. Projection is not love. It is possession disguised as devotion, and it is destroying us. Not just individually, but collectively. For when entire societies operate on the belief that we must find completion in another, we lose the ability to stand alone. We forget how to heal, how to grow, how to take responsibility for our own wholeness. So now, ask yourself again, are you in love with a person or with the idea of what they represent? Is this relationship truly fulfilling you, or is it merely reinforcing a story you refuse to rewrite? If you dare to answer honestly, prepare yourself, because the next step reveals the true cost of living inside this illusion. And it is far greater than you ever imagined. You rarely notice the trap until it's too late. At first, projection feels exhilarating. The certainty that you've found the one injects your life with meaning and direction. Your world narrows beautifully, sharply, around this person who seems to complete you in ways you never thought possible. But as time passes, a strange dissonance emerges. They say things that don't fit your narrative. They act in ways that confuse you. Their imperfections, once invisible, become glaring. You experience disappointment, then frustration, then heartbreak. But instead of seeing the root of the problem, that you projected your own unlived self onto them, you double down on the illusion. You cling to the idea that they've changed, that they're not who they used to be. But the truth is more disturbing. They were never who you believe they were. And in this disillusionment, you experience one of the most corrosive consequences of projection: emotional erosion. You begin to feel exhausted, not just from the relationship, but from the internal war between your ideal and reality. The psychic energy required to maintain the fantasy is immense. Every time reality contradicts your projection, you have to suppress the discomfort, rationalize their behavior, or find new ways to make the image fit. This is not love. This is maintenance of a lie, the loss of authentic connection. Perhaps the most tragic consequence of projection is this: it prevents you from experiencing real intimacy. When you project, you do not see the other person. You see your own unmet needs and repressed desires reflected back at you. You are in a relationship not with them, but with a symbol. And symbols cannot love you back. The other person, sensing this, even if only unconsciously, may feel objectified, unseen, trapped in a role they never agreed to play. They may begin to rebel, withdraw, or lash out, creating conflict and confusion. You both suffer. Because projection transforms relationships into a stage where neither party gets to be fully human. You are both playing parts in a script neither of you wrote. And when the inevitable collapse comes, when the projection disintegrates under the weight of reality, you are left not just with heartbreak, but with existential disorientation. Who were they, really? Who were you in relation to them? What, if anything, was ever real? The cycle of repetition, without conscious intervention, the collapse of one projection simply sets the stage for the next. You move on, find someone new, experience the same initial euphoria, and then repeat the cycle. Each time you tell yourself that this one is different, that this one really is the one. But the pattern is the same. Why? Because the underlying dynamic hasn't changed. The unconscious need is still there, unacknowledged, unintegrated, waiting to be projected onto the next unsuspecting soul. This is how you can spend a lifetime in relationships that feel meaningful in the beginning, but ultimately leave you empty, disillusioned, or resentful. Not because love is impossible, but because authentic connection is impossible when filtered through projection. You are chasing an image, not relating to a person. And until you break the cycle, your relationships will serve only to reinforce your unconscious wounds rather than heal them. The fragmentation of the self. Over time, repeated projection and collapse lead to fragmentation. Each failed relationship chips away at your self-trust. You begin to question your instincts, your capacity to love, your ability to judge character. You may conclude that you are simply unlucky in love, or that all people are inherently disappointing. But the truth is more complex. You are unknowingly participating in your own suffering by refusing to confront the internal dynamics that give rise to projection in the first place. This fragmentation is not just emotional, it is existential. You lose contact with your own center. Because when you live through projection, your sense of self becomes externalized. Your mood, identity, and worth are tied to the state of the relationship, to how well the other person conforms to your fantasy. You become emotionally dependent, spiritually disoriented, and psychologically weakened. You are no longer living from within, but from without. And this is perhaps the most devastating consequence of all. You abandon yourself. Cultural consequences. A society of projection, but this dynamic does not operate in isolation. We live in a culture that thrives on projection. Advertising, social media, entertainment, all are designed to seduce your psyche into projecting idealized narratives onto products, experiences, or people. You are encouraged to believe that happiness, fulfillment, and wholeness are things you acquire externally, through the perfect partner, the perfect lifestyle, the perfect image. The soulmate myth is not just a personal illusion, it is a cultural mythology, carefully maintained because it keeps you consuming, and it keeps you from looking inward. Because a society of self-aware, self-sufficient individuals is far less profitable than a society of fragmented, yearning consumers perpetually seeking completion outside themselves. Thus, the soulmate narrative is relentlessly reinforced in movies, songs, self-help rhetoric, even spiritual communities. And we, conditioned by this collective fantasy, continue to seek the one who will save us from ourselves. But in doing so, we remain trapped not just individually, but collectively in a state of arrested development. A society addicted to projection is a society that cannot mature. It cannot produce individuals capable of self-authorship, of depth, of real love. Because real love is not built on projection, but on the radical acceptance of both self and other in all their flawed, contradictory, and human reality. The spiritual consequences. Disconnection from the self. Finally, there is the spiritual cost. Projection not only alienates you from others, it alienates you from yourself. Every time you project your lost parts onto someone else, you push those parts further into the shadows. The strength you admire in them remains undeveloped in you. The freedom you crave in them remains unexpressed in you. The love you seek from them remains unoffered by you to yourself. Thus, The longer you live in projection, the more alienated you become from your own wholeness. And this alienation breeds not only loneliness, but despair. Because deep down, you know the truth, that no one can save you, that no one can complete you, that the longing you keep projecting outward is a call inward, but you are afraid to answer. Because answering means giving up the fantasy. It means facing the pain. It means taking responsibility, and so you stay, trapped in the cycle, until one day you wake up and realize that you've spent your entire life chasing people who never truly existed, while the one person you needed all along the reel, you has been waiting quietly, patiently, in the depths of your own soul. But what if there's another way? What if you could break the cycle, withdraw the projections, and reclaim the lost parts of yourself? Let us explore how to do exactly that, the rebellion that frees you from the myth and leads you to something far more powerful than finding a soulmate, finding yourself. You have seen the illusion. You have stared into the machinery of projection and felt its cold grip on your heart. You have traced the lineage of this myth, from childhood wounds to cultural conditioning, from philosophical warnings to neurological compulsions. And now you stand at the threshold of something far more dangerous than ignorance. Awareness. But awareness alone is not enough. To awaken is one thing. To act upon that awakening, that is the rebellion. Because now that you know the truth, you cannot go back. You cannot pretend that love is about finding someone to complete you. You cannot keep chasing reflections in the mirror, hoping they will finally turn around and speak to you as if they were real. So what do? How do you break free from a belief so deeply embedded in your psyche that it feels like oxygen? How do you stop looking outside yourself for what you've always had within? This is not a gentle process. It is not a self-help mantra or a feel-good affirmation whispered in front of the mirror. This is a war against the very architecture of your mind, a dismantling of everything you thought you knew about love, identity, and connection. And it begins with a single terrifying act. You must fall in love with yourself, not the narcissistic kind, not the curated, filtered, Instagram version of self-love that masquerades as empowerment while still seeking validation from others. No, this is deeper. This is the kind of self-love that comes only after you have faced your shadows. That blooms only when you stop running from your pain. That grows only when you stop blaming others for your emptiness and take full responsibility for your own healing. This is the kind of self-love that does not need another person to survive. It is not romantic. It is not sentimental. It is not poetic. It is radical. It is the refusal to outsource your wholeness. It is the decision to stop waiting for someone else to give you what only you can provide. And it is the most revolutionary act you can commit in a world that profits from your longing. Think of the great rebels throughout history, not just political revolutionaries, but psychological ones. The mystics who withdrew into silence, the philosophers who rejected conformity, the artists who embraced their madness and turned it into beauty. They did not seek completion in others. They found it within. Consider Rumi, who wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Or Meister Eckhart, who declared, "I pray God to rid me of God." These were not men searching for salvation in another. They were men who had already found it in themselves. Or look to modern exemplars, those who broke free from the gravitational pull of projection and lived entirely from within. Think of Simone de Beauvoir, who refused to define herself through her relationship with Sartre. Of Virginia Woolf, who carved out space for the inner lives of women in a world that demanded they be seen and not heard. Of Carl Jung himself, who descended into the depths of his unconscious and emerged with a new understanding of the human soul. These were not people who waited for love to save them. They became their own salvation, and so must you. But how? How do you begin the work of unlearning centuries of mythology, generations of trauma, and an entire culture built on the premise that you are incomplete without another? Start here. Step 1. Stop looking outside yourself. Every time you feel the urge to text someone because you're lonely, every time you swipe right on yet another profile, hoping this one will finally feel different, every time you idealize someone before you even know them, stop. Ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Is it companionship, purpose, meaning, safety? Whatever it is, you must learn to give it to yourself first. If you want companionship, build a deeper relationship with yourself. Learn to enjoy your own presence. If you want purpose, create it. If you want safety, cultivate inner strength. If you want meaning, find it in your actions, not in someone else's gaze. This is not easy. In fact, it may be the hardest thing you ever do, but it is the only path. Step 2. Face the wound. Projection is not random. It is rooted in specific emotional imprints, wounds from childhood, betrayals in past relationships, fears buried so deep you don't even recognize them anymore. Ask yourself, what part of myself did I abandon? And which people have I tried to use to reclaim it? Was there a time you learned that vulnerability was unsafe? That love meant suffering? That you had to earn affection by being perfect? Until you uncover these hidden injuries, you will keep projecting them onto others. You will keep choosing partners who repeat your past traumas, believing that this time you'll finally get it right. But healing doesn't come from repeating the pattern. It comes from breaking it. So sit with the pain. Let yourself feel it fully. Don't distract. Don't escape. Don't numb. Only when you stop running from your wounds can you finally close them. Step 3. Claim your sovereignty. True sovereignty is not about power over others. It is about power within yourself. No longer needing permission to be yourself. No longer needing someone else to make life feel meaningful. It means standing alone, not because you have no one, but because you choose to. This is the ultimate act of rebellion in a world that tells you you are nothing without love. So ask yourself, am I willing to stand alone? Not forever, not necessarily, but long enough to prove to yourself that you are enough, that you always were. And once you do, once you truly embody that truth, then and only then can you enter a relationship from a place of freedom rather than desperation. Because then, love becomes something else entirely. Not a rescue mission, not a fantasy, not a projection, but a meeting of two sovereign beings, two whole souls, two mirrors that no longer need reflection because they already shine from within. Now, ask yourself again, are you ready to stop searching for love and start becoming it? If you are truly ready to break free, then prepare yourself, because the final revelation is waiting, and it will change everything. You have come far. You have stared into the illusion of the soulmate myth and seen it for what it is, a projection of your own unmet needs, a mirror held up to your deepest wounds, a story you inherited and mistook for truth. You have unraveled the machinery behind it, the psychological defenses, the philosophical warnings, the neurological compulsions that keep you trapped in cycles of longing and disappointment. You have faced the consequences, how this belief has shaped your choices, distorted your relationships, and kept you from becoming whole. And you have begun the rebellion, turning inward, reclaiming your sovereignty, daring to believe that you are enough. But now comes the final revelation, the one that will shatter everything, not just about love, but about you. Because here it is, you were never meant to find someone else to complete you. You were meant to become the kind of person who no longer needs to be completed. That is the true purpose of all this suffering, of every failed relationship, of every heartbreak, of every moment you spent waiting, hoping, begging for someone to finally make you feel real. It was never about them. It was always about you. Every person who walked away, every promise that wasn't kept, every dream that crumbled in your hands, They were not signs that you were broken or unworthy. They were invitations. Invitations to go deeper, to stop looking outside yourself for answers, and begin the work of building something unshakable within. Because the truth is this: love does not save us. Love reveals us. When you fall in love, you do not find salvation. You uncover who you truly are beneath all the illusions, masks, and stories. You see your fears, your attachments, your neediness, your desperation to be seen, known, accepted. And if you run from that truth, you repeat the cycle. But if you stay with it, if you let it burn away everything false, you emerge on the other side, not as someone who has found love, but as someone who embodies it. This is the ultimate paradox. Only when you stop needing love can you truly give it. Only when you stop searching for someone to fix you can you offer healing without expectation. Only when you stop trying to fill the void inside can you stand beside another without trying to consume them. Only when you stop projecting your unmet needs onto others can you truly see them and love them for who they really are. This is not romantic idealism. This is radical self-mastery. It is the death of ego and the birth of soul. And once you cross that threshold, nothing is the same. You no longer look at people and wonder if they are the one, because you already are. You no longer measure your worth by whether or not you are loved, because you have already chosen yourself. You no longer fear being alone, because you have made peace with the only person you have ever truly needed to be with, yourself. This is the secret that no self-help book, no dating coach, no viral TED Talk dares to say out loud. True love is not found. It is forged in the fire of solitude, in the crucible of self-confrontation, in the silence where you learn to sit with your pain instead of running from it, in the moments when you choose integrity over comfort, growth over familiarity, truth over fantasy. This is not easy. It is not glamorous. It is not what the world sells you. But it is real. And once you taste it, once you feel the quiet power of standing alone, whole, unshaken, nothing else will ever satisfy you again. So ask yourself now, are you ready to stop chasing reflections? Are you ready to stop believing you are incomplete? Are you ready to stop outsourcing your wholeness to someone else? Or will you keep living in the illusion, forever waiting for someone to finally make you feel like you belong? Because the truth is this: you already belong. You already matter. You already have everything you need. You just forgot. And now you remember. Now you must decide. Will you return to the old story? The one where you are forever searching, forever hoping, forever falling short? Or will you write a new one? A story where you are not lost, where you are not broken, where you are not waiting. A story where you are the author, the creator, the sovereign, the lover, the beloved, the light, because that is who you are. Not half of a whole, not a missing piece, not a question waiting for an answer. You are the answer. You always were. And now, you finally know it. So go forward, not in search of love, but as love itself, and watch the world change around you. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video. It helps others find these insights too. And if you're ready for more content that challenges the way you think and live, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your journey to a deeper, more authentic life starts here.